Welcome once again. Every time we begin a new story, we step into another life. A life filled with dreams, fears, passion, and purpose. Through these stories, we don't just learn English, we learn how to feel deeply in a new language. We become fluent in the human experience. Today's journey takes us back over 500 years, to a time when the world was still opening its eyes, and into the mind of a man who saw farther than most ever could. He was a painter, a scientist, an inventor, and a thinker far ahead of his time. But more than that, he was a quiet soul always searching. He struggled with rejection, loneliness, and the pressure of being different. This is the story of Leonardo da Vinci, a man whose mind never stopped moving, and whose heart never stopped wondering. Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15th, 1452, in a small village called Anciano, near Vinci, in the heart of Italy. He was born out of wedlock, his mother a poor peasant woman named Caterina, and his father Piero, a respected notary. Because they were not married, Leonardo was considered illegitimate. This one word, illegitimate, would follow him for the rest of his life. He wasn't allowed to attend proper schools. He wasn't allowed to inherit his father's full fortune. He wasn't allowed to become a real citizen in many ways. But Leonardo didn't let that stop him. From the very beginning, he was curious. He noticed things most people ignored. As a child, he would walk through the fields and stare at the wings of birds. He'd sit by the river and draw the way water curled around a stone. He'd pull apart flowers just to see how the petals grew. He didn't talk much, but his mind never rested. People in his village called him strange, but brilliant. He wasn't interested in games. He was interested in truth. When Leonardo turned 14, his father, recognizing the boy's gift for drawing, arranged for him to train in Florence, the cultural center of the Italian Renaissance. Leonardo became an apprentice in the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the most respected artists of the time. There, Leonardo learned to paint, sculpt, design buildings, cast metal, and more. But he did not just learn, he transformed. He was better than the others. More precise, more patient, more intense. He studied the human body like no one else. He dissected dead animals to understand muscles. He observed human movement for hours, the way a hand opened, the way a smile formed, the way light touched skin. One day, Verrocchio asked Leonardo to paint just one angel in a larger scene. When the painting was finished, the angel Leonardo painted was so beautiful, so lifelike, that Verrocchio is said to have put down his brush forever. Leonardo had arrived. But even with his talent, life was not easy. In 1476, at the age of 24, Leonardo was anonymously accused of serious crime, sodomy, a word used in that time to describe same-sex relations, which were considered criminal. Leonardo was never convicted. There was no real evidence. But the accusation left a deep scar. He withdrew from public life for a while. He became more private, more protective of his work, more cautious with his trust. This moment marked a turning point. Leonardo began to live more inside himself. He surrounded himself with notebooks, sketches, experiments, and questions. Always questions. How do birds fly? Why is the sky blue? What makes the heart beat? He wrote in tiny mirror script, backwards, right to left, perhaps to keep his thoughts private, perhaps to protect them, perhaps because even genius needs a safe place. He filled thousands of pages with thoughts, most never shared in his lifetime. While the world focused on wars, kings, and religion, Leonardo focused on possibility. He designed machines that could fly, bridges that could fold, weapons that could destroy, though he disliked violence, and devices that would not exist for centuries. Aerial screws, early helicopters, mechanical knights, robots, diving suits, and even designs for bicycles. But people didn't understand him. They wanted paintings. He wanted understanding. He was often hired by powerful patrons, dukes, nobles, church leaders, but rarely finished what they asked. He started many projects and abandoned them if they no longer inspired him. This frustrated his clients. Some called him unreliable. Some whispered he was mad. But Leonardo wasn't driven by money or fame. He was driven by one thing: curiosity. Even as he explored science and invention, Leonardo continued to paint. And when he painted, he did so with a tenderness that had never been seen before. His most famous works include The Last Supper, a scene of Jesus and his disciples, painted with raw emotion and tension. Each figure reacts differently. The moment is alive. The Mona Lisa, a quiet woman with a secret smile, whose eyes seem to follow you wherever you go. Her identity is still debated, but her soul lives through the canvas. These paintings were not just beautiful, they were human. Leonardo once wrote, "Painting is a mental thing." He believed that art was not decoration. It was a way to understand life. He worked slowly. He often left paintings unfinished, because to Leonardo, nothing was ever truly done. There was always more to learn. Leonardo da Vinci was a man of many talents, but also many contradictions. He was famous but lonely, admired but misunderstood. Everywhere he went, he was surrounded by people and yet deeply alone. He was a perfectionist, afraid to show something unless it felt absolutely complete, which meant much of his work was left hidden. Unfinished paintings, drawings that were never exhibited, inventions that stayed in notebooks. He never married. He had no children. He formed deep emotional attachments to his students and assistants, especially a young man named John Giacomo Caprati, whom he nicknamed Salai. Their relationship was close, sometimes troubled, but full of affection. Leonardo often wandered from city to city, Florence, Milan, Rome, offering his services to noble families. He was praised as a genius, but rarely kept in one place for long. Why? Because Leonardo was always searching. He wasn't satisfied with what he knew. He wanted to know everything. Not just how things worked, but why they existed. And most of all, what connected it all together. To many, he seemed distracted. To some, even difficult. But the truth was simpler. He was thinking in centuries, and the world was thinking in days. What made Leonardo different wasn't just his skill. It was how he saw the world. He didn't separate science from art. He believed that the movement of a muscle was as beautiful as the curve of a smile. That studying bones could help paint more lifelike people. That understanding water could help design better bridges in better cities. He dissected over 30 human corpses, not out of cruelty, but out of wonder. He wanted to know how blood moved, how lungs filled, how the body danced. He drew hearts, veins, unborn babies in the womb, centuries before doctors had tools to do the same. But the church considered this dangerous. His drawings were never published in his lifetime. His findings were hidden. Leonardo had seen things no one else had, but had no one to show them to. It's one of history's greatest losses that so much of his genius remained locked in notebooks for hundreds of years. Still, Leonardo never stopped observing. Even in his 60s, he wrote pages about how wind moves through trees, how light bounces off the surface of water, how the wings of a dragonfly work. His notebook pages were alive with questions, and he never claimed to have all the answers. That, too, was part of his genius. In the early 1500s, Leonardo was invited to live in France by King Francis I, a young monarch who admired him not just as a painter, but as a thinker. The king gave him a beautiful home, the Chateau du Clos-Luz, and allowed him to spend his final years in peace. By now, Leonardo was older. He suffered pain in his hands. He painted less, but he still dreamed, still wrote, still taught. He brought some of his most beloved works with him, including the Mona Lisa, which remained by his side until the very end. He mentored young artists. He walked in the gardens. He sketched ideas that would not be fully understood for another 400 years. On May 2nd, 1519, Leonardo da Vinci died peacefully in his bed. He was 67 years old. According to legend, King Francis was by his side. The world lost a master that day, but it would take centuries to realize just how much he had left behind. Leonardo da Vinci was born without a title. He had no university degree. He often left things undone. He doubted himself. He feared being forgotten. And yet, he taught us that curiosity is a form of courage, that it's okay not to fit in, that it's beautiful to ask why, even if no one else does. He reminds us that true learning doesn't begin with answers. It begins with wonder. So as you sit here now, listening and learning, remember this. The greatest minds in history didn't know everything. They simply kept asking. And if Leonardo, the lonely boy from a small village, could change the way we see the world, then maybe your questions matter too. When Leonardo da Vinci died in 1519, the world moved on. Kings rose and fell. Wars were fought. New artists gained fame. And slowly, the pages of Leonardo's notebooks, those brilliant, careful, chaotic pages, were scattered. Some were locked away. Some were lost. Some were misunderstood. And for a time, so was he. It's hard to believe now, but for almost 300 years, Leonardo da Vinci was not considered the universal genius we speak of today. Yes, people remembered that he painted the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Yes, his name carried some weight in art circles, but the full depth of his mind, the full vision of his discoveries, that was buried in silence, because the world wasn't ready. Not yet. Leonardo had written more than 7,000 pages of notes in his lifetime. Tiny, mirrored handwriting, drawings of machines, anatomy studies, observations of nature, personal thoughts. After his death, those notebooks were divided, passed from student to student, sold, hidden, forgotten. Some ended up in royal collections. Some are bound into books. Some are never found again. But in the 19th century, something began to change. Scholars started reading Leonardo's notes. They began to understand what he had left behind. And slowly, the world woke up to what it had nearly lost. What they found was stunning. Flight machines designed 400 years before the first airplane. Human heart diagrams more accurate than those in medical textbooks of the time. Scientific method before science even had a method. Suddenly, Leonardo wasn't just a great painter. He was something more, a man who had seen into the future and who had tried to bring it into the present, page by page. In the 20th century, as technology advanced, people began to see just how far ahead Leonardo had been. Engineers marveled at his machines. Doctors studied his anatomy sketches. Artists felt the precision in his line work. Philosophers read his notes on human nature and ethics. It was as if a man from the 1400s had written a love letter to the 2000s, and we had finally opened it. Suddenly, schools taught about him. Books were written. Museums held exhibitions. The name Leonardo da Vinci was no longer just historic, it was timeless. People looked at the Mona Lisa with new eyes. They noticed the layers of emotion, the mystery in her smile, the science in the softness of her skin. People read his notebooks with awe, not because he claimed to have answers, but because he was never afraid to ask. And in doing so, he gave us permission to ask too. One of the most powerful things about Leonardo is this. He never stayed in one box. He wasn't just an artist, or just a scientist, or just an engineer. He moved between them freely, because, to him, they were all part of the same search. He believed the world was one connected whole, that nature, art, science, movement, spirit, all reflected each other. He once wrote, "Learn how to see, realize that everything connects to everything else." This is perhaps his greatest teaching, that life is not divided, that knowledge is not a straight line. It's a circle, and in that circle, we all find our own way to wonder. Today, when people say the word genius, they often mean someone who knows a lot. But Leonardo shows us something different. True genius is not about what you know. It's about what you're willing to learn. Walk into the Louvre Museum in Paris today, and you'll see crowds gathered around a single painting, the Mona Lisa. She sits behind glass, watched by thousands every day. Some try to take pictures. Some try to figure out her smile. Some just stand in silence. What they don't always realize is this. She's watching us too. That painting is more than paint. It is Leonardo's voice, his questions, his compassion, his patience. She is a result of years of study, heartbreak, hope. She is everything he learned about women, about faces, about mystery, about the soul. She is his gift to the world. And she reminds us that what we create can outlive us, if it's made with truth. Leonardo da Vinci left behind no children, no school named after him in his lifetime, no fortune, but his true legacy lives in us, in the artists who dare to see differently, in the scientists who still ask why, in the dreamers who feel misunderstood but keep imagining anyway. He shows us that we don't have to finish everything to be remembered. We don't need to be accepted by all. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be curious, to feel, to explore, to share what we find. That is enough. Leonardo was not afraid to leave this world with questions unanswered, because he trusted that someone, someday, might pick up where he left off. And maybe in learning his story, that someone is you. Leonardo da Vinci never lived to see the world understand him. He was too strange, too slow, too bold, too quiet. He didn't belong in the 15th century, but perhaps he belongs in ours. He reminds us that genius does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers in notebooks. Sometimes it paints in silence. Sometimes it never finishes a masterpiece, because it was too busy falling in love with the process. And that's okay. You don't have to be fast to be brilliant. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to look at the world and wonder. So next time you see the sky move, or a light catch on water, or a question appear in your heart, let it stay, let it grow, because inside that moment, Leonardo is still alive.